All right, hi everyone. Today, thank you for joining us. I'm going to be drawing Merrin from the Jedi Survivor series. I already went ahead and did my sketch layer to give you guys an idea of what we were going to be doing, and then I'll be jumping into the line art today, and hopefully we'll get a little bit of coloring done too, but no promises on that. So I'm going to go ahead and color my sketch layer. And let's begin with the line art. So I like to put my line art in photos, like so. All right. Just going to start with the lines that I've already kind of hammered out a little bit. This is a new brush that I haven't really used for line art before, so it's kind of fun. It has like a messy, dotted, pencil-y look that I really like. And I had the idea that maybe this piece I would try to do sort of monochrome. We'll see how that ends up going. I might do monochrome and just do like the fire green, like her Dathomirian witch flames and everything in green, or her Nightsister magic. There we go. Or I might do the whole thing monochrome and kind of just use a cool brush for that as well. So this is also my first time drawing Merrin. I was kind of inspired to do so after Dragon Con and I was at a con this past weekend called Dragon Con, and there were a lot of folks there who were super into these games and everything, so I thought it would kind of be cool while I'm still in that kind of mindset. The one thing about a new brush is that it does kind of take some time to get used to all the little eccentricities of how to get my lines looking the way that I like them to look. There we go. And since she is working on her Nightsister magic in this piece, I kind of want to leave the irises and the pupils and everything really, really light, so I can do some shine and stuff coming out of them, just like when she's using her magic. I also liked the idea of this piece being kind of a little dark, which is why I kind of have her doing a little bit of a Kubrick stare here, as it were. Ooh boy. There we go. I'm actually really pleased so far. I haven't been able to do very many pieces where I stream and record at the same time, just because my lag has just gotten really, really bad with certain brushes that I use and everything. But this time it's actually holding up pretty well, and I don't have too much of a noticeable lag on my pin. So hopefully we'll be able to actually record this whole thing and post it later. That would be awesome. because I know like there are many of you who I follow and you follow me and everything that we're just all in different time zones, and what works best for like an after work stream for me is just not necessarily when everyone else has availability. So I've always kind of wanted to record some of these so that I could get them up on YouTube later on and all of that. Not bad. I'm still not super pleased with that line. It is like a challenging angle to draw the face at. Merrin's face is pretty round, especially at like the bottom. I have my reference pictures actually pulled up on this monitor so I can kind of like look over my shoulder and look, but she's kind of got a little bit more roundness and fullness through here than a lot of our Star Wars women do. That's what makes her so cute. Hopefully in this piece she's looking like real fierce. The one thing that bothered me when I was looking at this sketch, like I like to like take screenshots of my sketches and everything and like put them up so that people will like know what I'm drawing in a given day and whatnot. The one thing that was kind of bothering me about this is that I noticed later on that her ears were not level with each other, so I'm going to have to move where that ear is. Even though probably most of that is going to get erased when we do her hands, which usually comes after the face. I like to draw the face first because I think it gives like the drawing like the most like maximum amount of personality, and then if I can, if it makes sense to, I like to go ahead and draw the hands next. Okay. Super ear. Kind of more like here. I don't draw characters with ears a whole lot, given that my favorite characters are like Inquisitors and everything, and they tend to have their ears like completely obscured. So I'll get like a ton of practice drawing ears. But it's certainly a good thing to practice because most people have them. Let's see. We'll go with that for now. Right. Onto the hair. Again, another thing that I don't draw like terribly, terribly often, just because Inquisitors tend to not have a lot of hair. But I like it though, like especially when I'm drawing something like kind of swoopy like this. Yeah, her. I like how like kind of loose her Jedi Survivor hair is. It's like I can do like a little bit more like chunks coming off of it and everything. It's also doubly fun because like I feel like a lot of because I end up drawing a lot of like animated characters. I feel like the hair ends up being like kind of stiff and straight a lot of the time. Like it's usually kind of plastered down to their heads. Like we don't see a lot of like animated Star Wars characters with like curls or anything. So it's kind of refreshing to have like a tiny bit of curl texture and not just like stick straight hair. Although I've certainly seen people like interpret characters who have like straighter hair in animation having curlier hair, and I think that's kind of like a valid interpretation for several of them. Where it's like, well, is their hair really straight, or is it just straight because that's how they're being limited by the animation style? You know, important distinction. Let's see if this is where her ear is now. Then have a little bit more like that coming on. It's a person with moderately curly hair myself. This is kind of the sort of stuff that I see every day in the mirror. So, pluses for that. I love to see it. I would also love to hear from any of you guys if you guys have played these games, who your favorite characters are and whatnot. What did you think about the second game and all of that, or the first game? I'm not picky. I just like having folks to talk to. There we go. Like I said, I don't draw hair very often, but I do enjoy it when I do get to draw it. Especially like lighting it and shading it and everything. That can be kind of a bit of a challenge. I definitely need more practice getting the hair to look like the right texture and not like kind of just like flat shiny. I actually think that's pretty good on hair. Well, and naturally, I split it between a couple of layers because I'm always good for that. And I changed my brush size, so I think it was at like 2 something. Yeah. Let's go with that. I'll say it was at 3. If any of you guys remembered or were paying attention to what size the brush was at before, awesome. I think I'll go ahead and leave the corners of her eyebrows in there. Cool, cool, cool. We're chugging along. I think her markings, I'm going to do. Actually, let's go ahead and try to get her markings on here, shall we? Normally, for like things like this, a lot of times what I'll do is when I'm doing like the flat colors, I'll put the markings in with the flat colors. But in this particular instance, because I'm looking at doing like a monochrome and everything, then I'm really probably going to be doing like a little bit like softer feel with the colors and everything and the shading. So I think if I do like a softer brush with the shading, then I probably want to do like outline the markings and everything so that they look like they match in with the rest of the line art. So I'm just getting a feel for Merrin's markings and what they do. I'm going to start with the one kind of on the bridge of her nose here. I think it helps give her face like a nice like character and like when I first drew her markings on, I really thought that it added a lot to the expression that I was having her do. Let's see. Love that though. Yeah, that's better. And note that when you draw, and I don't know how many of you guys draw professionally. I am a professional graphic artist, so I'm on the computer a lot. I'm not doing like this type of illustration all the time. This is purely something that I work on in my free time. But if you do this for like hours and hours a day, you definitely want to like protect your wrists. Your wrists are your greatest asset. Pretty much, they're a pain in the butt to replace if you like tweak them wrong and whatever. Definitely, if it's like an uncomfortable angle to draw at, rotate your canvas instead of rotating your wrist. That's the best way to go. So we got the bridge of her nose. I actually think it might be split. Gotta pull up a better reference image here. I have a great reference for her outfit up, but like it doesn't really show her markings straight on. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and screenshot this image. Time to head. So I can pull it up over here and look at them like side by side. Okay. Also, I apologize for being kind of sniffly. Like I said, I was at a con last week, so I have a wee bit of the con crud. Okay. Oops. Take my screenshot here. There we go. Better and easier than looking over my shoulder every 5 minutes to kind of see what's going on. I know some of you that follow me are also like really big into Maul. This is probably the way to go if you're drawing Maul's tattoos as well, I would imagine. For all of your night brotherly, night sisterly needs. I've done it before where like I totally am like just looking at a picture of Maul and trying to draw his markings from that. It's not my favorite method for doing that. For certain. I also like just a couple of weeks ago, I did a drawing of Senator Daho Sejan from the same series from the Jedi Survivor game, and he has like a really complicated pattern on his tunic, and I was like just sitting there staring at it, just kind of trying to like break it down into smaller shapes so that I could like recreate it and everything. And eventually, what I ended up doing was like getting a reference image like this, and like I found a part of his tunic that was like dead on, and I just like traced over a repeating section of it with my the textured brush that I was using for the drawing. And I traced over that section, and then I just turned it into a repeating pattern in the like I just like copied it and pasted it as many times as I needed to cover his clothes, and then I used the warp tool. So like yes, I did like trace that one tiny section of his pattern, but I think that's probably excusable given how complicated that pattern was. Like I gave it a valiant effort trying to do it myself, and it was just not happening. It was just um, a little bit too complicated for me to like. I was like trying to figure out how exactly it worked, and I was like, oh, sometimes easier is better. Just erasing these lines from her face because they're kind of like conflicting with the markings there, and it's not clear like what is part of what. So, okay. So we have those. Now let's go to under her eyes. So there is like a disconnect here. There's like kind of like a barb shape. This might be the hardest part of the drawing to do, so like once we do this, we might be like smooth sailing for the rest of this. That would be awesome. Up, down, and there's like a hook taken out of it, and then it goes back down again. So we got the barb, in, down, up. Okay, let's see how that looks. It kind of makes it look like she's wearing glasses, like just a little tiny bit. This is also kind of like hooked, like almost spiky on the end, like that. Okay. Maybe to move our screenshot out of the way just a little bit. Let's think. So like I ended up drawing some of this in the wrong layer, as I want to do sometimes. Okay. And the only reason why I'm making sure to move this one into the layer is because I think I might do what I do sometimes with my Palon that I draw, and like whenever I have to draw like the lines on their face, sometimes it can get kind of distracting with the other line art. So a lot of times, what I'll do for them is like just take the opacity down like just a hair. So if I merge these, and I take the opacity down to like, I don't know, like maybe 80. honestly probably even lower. Like something like that, so it doesn't look like too bold in comparison to the rest of her. Something along those lines. Make sure that that is like, yeah, roughly parallel to where the same turn happens on the other side. Okay. I'm liking that so far. And she also has like just a little bit of markings under her lips, which the angle of her face is going to cover up most of that here. And also I can tell already too that her fingers are going to be covering up a little bit of it. Okay, let's try that. Right. Now I think I'm gonna go back and add a couple of like little like details to her face, like that line there, sort of a little bit to like suggest where her eyelids are and everything. Yeah, she does have like really like kind of nice round cheeks like that. Alright. So now that her face is done, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to her hands. So like I said, once you get like the face and the hands down, then from there, like the rest of the outfit and everything goes like so much smoother because those are typically the two like most complicated things. So especially like when I have her doing like a weird like Nightsister magic pose with her hands. I showed this sketch to one of my coworkers today because I was like telling him about how like my streaming process goes and everything. He was like really drawn in by the hands. This is definitely something that I learned like drawing inquisitors, especially like there's a lot of inquisitors who like don't show a face, like they have masks obscuring part or all of their face, is that I really like to use the hands to help um, gesture for them. Like if you think about it, almost all of the Inquisitors like have masks that they can wear, right? But like the Nightsister's helmet obscures a lot of her face. You can get her mouth, but you can't get a lot from her eyes. Sixth brother's eyes are covered. Eighth brother's entire head is covered. 10th brother, he has no eyes, and the lower part of his face is covered. So when you start getting into like characters like that. Seventh Sister has like a mask that obscures her full face that she wears sometimes. Trilla does too. When you start to get into like that sort of stuff, I like to be able to use the rest of the body to tell a story and an emotion, and the hands are just a really uh, nice and easy way to do that, because a lot of times we gesticulate with our hands whenever we talk with each other. The shoulders are a big part of it too, certainly, but your hands can do a lot of talking for you. Also, I was raised by Italians, so uh, that may or may not be part of it as well. But I have a trouble talking when my hands aren't moving. I don't know. And this certainly comes up quite a bit when I'm drawing hands, but um, a lot of how I draw hands is that I keep a mirror on my desk. And that way, like, if I ever get into, like, kind of a situation where something's not looking quite right with the fingers or whatever, I can just kind of do the pose with my hands in the mirror. And that way I can sort of tell what the issues might be. Because it's very easy to, like, kind of, like, observe a finger in, like, one angle, and then when you draw it, it looks like kind of strange, like it should almost be facing the other direction or angled up or down or whatever. And if you're just looking at your hand while you're doing it, it'll sort those issues for you pretty quickly. But we all know that I love a good, like, gnarly looking hand. I love putting hands at, like, super strange, bizarre angles and everything like that. Like, this one, where um, I guess it's easier for me to see because I'm looking at it from this direction, but the knuckles pointing inwards towards each other is like a really unnatural looking thing, which I think lends itself really well to Nightsister magic. It also kind of forces the perspective a little bit more, it was definitely like a focus of doing this, like having her head tilted down and everything. Definitely a huge part of the piece is like the weird perspectives and all of that. Sometimes the nails will make or break you. I almost always have to like double check my nails when I'm done. And by my nails, I mean like Merrin's nails, but you know. The thumb is often the hardest part of like weird angles like this. Because like the other fingers like tend to follow like a pretty set pattern for where they should be and everything, and like the thumbs, yeah, that was pretty good though. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna go ahead and give her knuckles a little bit more definition. All right. We'll hold off on those other lines. Okay, that's one hand done. Time for the other one. And like I said, once we get the hands down, it's going to be like real smooth sailing. So a lot of times when I'm drawing hands from like the forward angles, I like to start with the knuckles because it kind of gives you like a, I don't know, like a resting point, I guess, like just a reference, not a resting point, a reference point for like where all of the knuckles and everything are going to end up. I don't know if you guys listen to like metal music or tech music or anything like that, but I have a particular song by a metal band called Archspire stuck in my head, and it's just like playing through like the chorus over and over and over again. It's like I wish I could play my music on Twitch, but obviously that would be like a, you know, royalties problem. But it would be awesome to share some of that with you. I don't know, honestly. I think that so few people like. I don't know that a lot of my followers are into the music that I'm into, so maybe it would be like a massive turn off if like you went to come onto my stream and then you hated the music that I was playing. Like turn that off. I know that there are like royalty free stations that you can play for like Twitch and everything like that. But I don't know, I'm particular about like screening my music in advance and everything. Like I just like I have my particular songs that I like. I don't want to just kind of like listen to whatever when I'm drawing. Like I specifically have a drawing playlist. It's like 250 songs long, so that's how particular I am when I'm deciding what to listen to when I draw. And sometimes when I'm not streaming, it's like it's not because I'm feeling antisocial or whatever. It's because I just want to like listen to music when I draw instead of socializing. That's it. Yeah, I feel like once we get these fingers down and everything, it's gonna really come together. See, again, this is one of those where it's like, yeah, there should be a nail on here, but like actually getting the angle right is what exactly precisely what I mean when I say the nails will make or break the perspective on your fingers. Which I think it probably looked better before I started trying to put a nail on there. All right. So what I need to do now is like make sure that I'm happy with these. I'm gonna get rid of this hand for just a second so I can look at just this hand and see if there's anything kind of funky going on. Like there is a wee bit of some funkiness going on with this ring finger. First, that like right in here is like I think it's just a little bit whiter than it needs to be, right? So I think it needs to be like a little bit more like that. But then put that like that. Right, let's try that on for size. Yeah, I think that looks better. Okay. Alright, now let's go through. RIP, you were a beautiful knuckle. That's just a reminder that a lot of times it's honestly best to draw like your foreground layers and move backwards because you might end up drawing stuff that you're just going to go back and erase in like a few minutes. But that said, it can also like just having those lines there can really help guide you. Like, you know, sometimes when you're trying to get something even, drawing a line on this side and a line on this side is like harder than if you just drew a U and erased whatever the overlapping parts were. Plus, I mean, what if you decide like you're unhappy with something and later on you need to move it? That's definitely also kind of a valid reason to keep a whole bunch of intersecting lines on a piece. But me personally, I know that I'm terrible about forgetting to go back and actually erase the other parts. So I like to kind of keep erasing as I go. Excuse me for one moment. Like I said, I've been ill, so I need to blow my nose and drink some water. Okay. Jokes. We all thought that the tissues were there because I was sad about what happened in the last episode of Ahsoka, but actually it's because I'm sick. All right. Here we go, Merrin. I think I'm gonna go ahead and do her forearms now, since they're like in the most foreground. So her outfit. Yeah, she does have like a little bit of a guard on the back of her hands here. I'm actually trying to decide. Okay, so it's almost like the exact opposite of the glove that I'm wearing right now. It's almost like a glove that kind of comes up over her first two fingers instead of her second two fingers, like an archer's glove, I guess. Oh, it's like coming onto her middle finger, I think. Yes. Okay. So she's wearing rings, and there's like a little thing on her thing that goes like up to her middle finger. So let's go ahead and draw that. This is what happens when you're drawing characters that you've never drawn before. It's like you get to play a little bit of a wardrobe study game every time. On the other hand, though, like rings look so good on fingers. Like if you can like nail them, it can really add a lot to like helping. Like hands are like kind of tricky in the sense that like you can't draw every single line that's on a hand, otherwise the person's hand will look like super super shriveled and everything. So like you've kind of got to suggest shapes from time to time, and like sometimes having something like a glove with like a line on it or like a ring or something like that will help your brain as a viewer like fill in the gaps between what is what part of the hand you're looking at, essentially. Now the other fun part about this is like making it actually look like there's like a cloth like stretched over her knuckles. This is just kind of a more challenging glove to draw in a sense. I think we've got it under control though. third hook is just a little too much. Let's just make it a little bit gentler pull. Okay, I'm liking that. Now she has like all kinds of rings on. She is a jewelry gal. So she's got like 2 rings on this finger. Good for her. Alright, and then next. Yeah, there's one on every single one of these. Alright. So this is again where I say, like, if you're having trouble just because of the angle of your wrist or whatever, good time to rotate the canvas. Haven't saved in forever. That could have been a dangerous mistake to make right there. But hey, we got it, we got it. We're under control. I hope everyone else's week. Ooh. The one thing I did not want to do is draw the rings on the hand layer. That's the one thing I really do not want to do. Yeah, I hope everyone's weekend went well. If you're in the US, it was a holiday this past weekend. Though, ironically, so it's our Labor Day, right? Which is supposed to be like a rest day for like laborers and everything. But I feel like what has ended up happening is the exact opposite, where if you do have like kind of like a regular labor job, then you are working Labor Day, and then it's the people who work in like big offices and stuff who like actually have the day off. Kind of backwards. Seems like it's like kind of like the one weekend where it should like be the opposite, right? But what do I know? Nothing. I know how to draw a pretty girl. Yay. Don't need to know much more than that. Maybe a few things more than that. Alright, there's one hand's worth of rings. Now to do the other hand, where she has the exact same configuration. Alright. So I'm going go ahead and do like the ring on this finger that holds like the glove into place. Yeah, I really thought, and you can kind of tell from how I drew it initially, that this was like some kind of like guard on the back of her head. Maybe I'm just too used to drawing armored Star Wars characters that do have guards on the back of their hand, that like I just like made an assumption based on like the little bit of it I could see in my reference shot. Ah, right. This is it. Alright. Remember what I said about like worrying about drawing details that you're eventually going to cover up with other layers anyway? All that time I spent refining how like the edge of that ring looks just to cover it up with the next one in the stack. Silly. Alright. Let me know if you in the chat if you guys have any questions that I can answer. Anything. I know like when I get like kind of focused in the zone here, I can get kind of quiet, but that doesn't mean that I can't talk or anything. I just am in my own little doot doot world right now. Just putting rings. I'm putting a ring on it, Merrin. Coming for you. Honestly, of all of the Star Wars characters that you could marry, honestly, Merrin is probably not the worst choice you could make. If you were going to put a ring on a Star Wars character, who would you choose? Or a video game character. Merrin gets to sort of be both. Alright. There's some rings. Some rings. Oh, and I should probably go ahead and erase that. Red, so that's the hardest part done. Whoop, whoop, whoop. We got the hands down and the face down. So from here, I'm just going to move right along to her jacket, sleeves. Okay, so she's kind of got like this like wrap thing going on. Love it. Love a good wrist wrap. It's kind of like drawing the hair, right? You can just kind of start to go nuts and let the folds of everything like get lost up in all up in that situation. So I love a good like thin folded wrapped sleeve concept. Although I don't know, lately I've been like super into doing like the Inquisitors lately have all had like pleated sleeves as of Kenobi. So that's been kind of fun. You can really get lost in the nuance with some pleats, let me tell you. Things that you don't hear every day, right? That's it. Alright. I want to stick with that. Alright. Right. Okay. She's got like this tall turtleneck thing. I'm wondering if I should go ahead and do that. Because I'd like to draw the jacket kind of in one piece. Now let's go ahead with the jacket, shall we? We're on a roll. We can do it. I believe in us. Okay. Wow, this fold of the jacket is like gonna be like totally barely visible. So there's like a hood on the jacket, and then it comes off at a diagonal, like so. And it makes like this seam that's like kind of just a little bit raised off the shoulder. It comes back down under the arm here. One thing that I do, like, kind of really early on, I know that, like, I started with my sketch already done here, but one thing that I do kind of early on is, like, I'll usually set up kind of like establishing shapes. So, like, the raise of one hand over the other, like, her shoulder kind of follows that same pattern. Um, and that's just, like, kind of compelling design. There's not, like, necessarily a reason to do that. It would be boring if everything was like completely symmetrical in every piece that you draw. So creating some kind of movement with the eyes can create like really good and interesting compositions. Just following those shapes throughout the piece. Clean up. As I said, I like to clean up my lines as I go because otherwise I will like never remember to go back and get those like little edges where they overlap and everything. And I've totally left them into finished pieces before and like not even realized until super late in the work. Okay. So to make that corner seam over here. And then it'll be time to draw over the hood. A little witchy hood. To me, I think that like the hood is possibly my favorite part of this costume design. I think that it's just like it's like a really nice shape, and I think that's kind of what drew me to drawing this outfit over because like obviously she has an outfit that she wears in Fallen Order 2, which is a nice and pretty cool outfit as well. But I personally really like the hood on this one. I'm a fan of big dramatic shapes that frame the head. For those of you that don't know, my favorite character is the Grand Inquisitor, and he's got like this huge neck seal that like frames under the head like a very like Dracula classic monster type silhouette, which I find just good and interesting character design, to be honest. Same here. I like this big flowing silhouette. I think it makes perfect sense for a witch to have like a big, you know, it would be like kind of stereotypical to give her like a big hat, right? I mean, like Mother Talzin has one, right? She's a Nightsister type. I mean, she's a Dathomirian witch. She's like their head or whatever. But like instead of going like upwards with the hat, kind of giving like the big Dracula collar instead is a very fun choice. it has like kind of a weight to it, which is kind of the part that is like a little bit more difficult to nail down, right? Is like the weight and the flow of the leather. So that's why sometimes it takes like a couple of tries to kind of get that shape right. Because like we know intuitively, yes, it is Merrin. We're doing Nightsister Merrin today. Welcome back to the stream. Forgot I'm all in the same layer on this one. I just went big or went home. All of the jacket in one layer. At least the outlines. I'll probably do like some of like the detailed work in different layers. Yes, we're having fun with Jedi Survivor Merrin today. And her little Kubrick stare. At first I had her like doing like kind of like a more confident like chin up type thing, but I feel like I do the chin up look a lot in my drawings, so I wanted to do like the chin down slightly unhinged thing. You know what, Merrin I think deserves to get to let loose every once in a while and just go crazy. All right. Okay. I'm just checking over like all of my folds and lines and intersects and everything, making sure that everything looks like it's going where it's supposed to go. Pretty soon here I'm going to get rid of my sketch layer, which will hopefully make it a little easier to see where I might have made a couple of like overlapping mistakes and stuff like that. Okay. Oh, and it would help if I drew her shoulder. Okay. She's got a shoulder now. Yeah, let's go ahead and see what she's looking like without the sketch layer on there. Yeah, she's really coming together now. I always love that point when I can like take away the sketch layer and kind of see. Although I do think I've gone maybe a little heavy on her under eyes here. Like we were going for crazy, but I don't know if we're going for quite that crazy. I think that's a little better. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I so full disclosure, I'm like really not the best at playing video games, and those games are like particularly difficult games at that. Um, so I watched my husband play the Jedi Survivor games because I am really not that great. It would take me like way more effort to get through them than I think would be like worth it. I mean, I guess they have like story mode or whatever, so like I can enjoy it for the story, but um, I do like watching like a playthrough too. Yeah, this one is I think Merrin here is like all about the hands now, all about that magic. Her capable hands. So, aside from playing the game, have you read the book at all? Jedi Battle Scars. It was a book that took place between Fallen Order and Survivor, and Merrin features very heavily in that game. Sorry, book. Yes, also in the games, but this is something that I mentioned earlier too. Like sometimes when you have something with like complex overlapping shapes, um, it is easier to draw it. So like instead of doing what I've done here, where I draw like the foreground first, that way I only have to draw like little pieces of the layers that go underneath. If you're doing something kind of complex, sometimes it's easier just to draw the full thing regardless of what's in front of it, because it can be kind of difficult to like suss out like how things connect on one side of a shape and the other and whatnot. And at this stage, it can get kind of like confusing when you've got something like super complex underneath. Oh, Red Blade is so good too. Yeah. They're both really good. I got to this past weekend at Dragon Con, I got to talk to both the author of Jedi Battle Scars and the author of Rise of the Red Blade. So that was like an awesome experience to kind of talk to them both and tell them like, hey, these books, they mean a lot to me. Here's what I loved about them. Here's what we all loved about them and whatnot. And thank you for writing excellent books about characters that we love. Essentially, what it boils down to is like, hey, I like what you did with those characters that I like a lot. Thank you. Um, I would say like Rise of the Red Blade was definitely, I don't know, it's kind of hard to stack them up. I mean, um, I think that one was probably more personal to me. Uh, so I think I probably enjoyed that one a little bit better, but they were both good books for sure. Read the first three chapters. Yeah. Oh yeah. Of Red Blade or Battle Scars? Yeah, exactly. Oh, is cat. I was listening to that at work and my chest was like physically hurting. It was like so good. It's like, oh my sweet. And it's like, when just watching her make all of these decisions. Actually, I don't even think that would overlap there. I think the overlap would be somewhere over here, so we're just not gonna bother with that. But we do need to draw her necklace because that's very important to her character. Um, Red Blade, yeah. Is Catacombs. I'm actually this weekend taking in a cat that one of my coworkers, they have like a stray by them that had a litter and they really needed a home for the last surviving kitten from the litter. And so, yeah, I'll be adopting a cat this weekend. And like, if it is a female cat, I think I'm probably going to name it as Catacars. So there we go. Characters in media that I love enough to name an animal after. Certainly, this cat is deserving of that. Man, chains are interesting to draw. A lot of times with my the stuff that I do for my OCs, when I have to draw chains, I kind of have like a shorthand that I do, kind of like a shorthand for like braids and everything like that. I feel like you just gotta when you're doing like huge numbers of links and whatnot. That's honestly, it just looks like way too big anyway. So I need to make my link size smaller. Like that probably. yeah, like I have a shorthand for doing chains, but um, when you have like so little, like, when you're like so close up and there's like so much more detail, it's like a lot more difficult to get away with doing the shorthand version, essentially. But Merrin's necklace is very, very important to her, so we cannot skimp on the detail here. I think that's actually part of her hand. Yeah. Okay. Oh no. We have we have a lot of pets actually. So we have we like before we moved in together, I had a dog and a snake, and then we moved in together, and um, then we got another snake, and then after we moved into our house, I took in my childhood cat. So then we had another. So we had at that point we had a dog, two snakes, and a cat. And then after a while, we decided that we wanted to adopt another cat. So we had adopted a second cat. So this will be our third cat. And overall, we will have a dog, three cats, and two snakes. So we have a few animals in our household for certain. Um, one big happy household. All right, I think that's a pretty good looking chain, to be honest. Yeah, happy with that. Um, Birds. So I actually worked with birds for about a decade professionally. I love birds a lot. If I ever were to have birds as a pet, I would want a chicken. Or I mean, more than one because obviously they're flock animals. So I would have a lot of chickens. But yeah, after doing birds for like a really long time, they have like such intense social needs and everything. Not that the other animals don't, but it's like parrots are like a whole different ball game. I've always liked like finches and stuff, which that would kind of be another bird that I would like consider because I feel like they can keep each other pretty happy and everything, and uh, but it's just like I think one of the major barriers stopping us from getting birds is like right now it's very easy to get someone to kind of like come over to take care of the cats when we're gone, and you can always like board the dog when you're gone and everything. But then like birds require like a pretty specific level of care, and they can also get like very ornery when their social group is mixed up, like if you go away for a while and whatnot. And so it's like the social needs aspect. I know that there are people out here there who do like fantastic jobs with parrots and everything. I just feel like, man, I did it professionally for 10 years and it was a lot. And I don't know if I want that for my household exactly. I like fish too, but I kind of feel the same way about like all of the like the fish tank parameters and all of that. It's like I am super duper in awe of people who like want to keep like super exotic fish and things like that. And I love visiting aquariums and like seeing all of the beautiful fish and everything. I just think it's super duper relaxing, but I just don't see myself keeping up with that and giving them the level of care that they need and everything. So, um, as much as I love those animals, I am going to uh, probably not have those in my own house. I'll stick to the dogs, cats, and snakes. I would consider doing like an amphibian too. Like I would I would probably consider doing like frogs and salamanders. Although I don't know, again, you're anything that has like specific water requirements starts to get a little bit more difficult, I think, um, and just a little bit more complicated than I'm ready for. Yeah. There only only one only one kitten survived. So like this is like a stray, and we had like an insanely hot summer here. Like it was, well, and pretty much everywhere had record breaking temperatures and everything, and like people's like chickens and stuff like outdoor animals were just like dropping dead. And so this cat had her litter like at like the hottest part of the year, and it was an outdoor stray cat. So only one of the kittens ended up surviving. And what they did basically is like they like the cat was coming in and out of the garage with the kitten, so they like basically confined the kitten into like the laundry room of their house, and then had the mom coming and going from the laundry room, and that's how they were able to keep this one kitten alive. So they just had one kitten, and they've actually they actually managed to catch the mom and get her spayed. So this will be her last litter, but they actually have a kitten from a previous litter from the same cat as their pet, and they didn't want any more cats, so they were trying to find a home for this one kitten. Um, as for when it comes to picking out pets, other than like my snakes, we were definitely looking for like specific morphs and like color morphs, and my ball python is like she's a desert morph because um, female desert morph ball pythons can't breed. So like as far as like the reptile trade goes, she's like considered like a not very valuable animal. So she was like priced a lot cheaper than a lot of other ball pythons, especially like ball python morphs. Like back when I got her like 10 years ago, ball python morphs were like all the rage. So it was really difficult to find like any kind of like fancy color that was not insanely expensive, but ones that were useless to breeders like that were definitely less expensive and definitely needed homes. So that's how I got my ball python. Um, my husband's hognose need hog is lavender toffee belly, which was just like a good looking morph that we found. As for all of my other pets, they are all rescue animals that we just went to the shelter, and whichever one we connected with, that's the one we ended up with. Except for like obviously Apollo, my childhood cat. He was obviously a cat that I've had since middle school, I guess. Maybe early high school. Maybe early high school. So he's an old man, and my parents didn't want him, so we took him in. So that's how we ended up with him. But everyone else is just kind of like, well, we're ready to take in an animal, whichever one kind of pulls on our heartstrings the most, I guess. And so, in this case, it was like, uh, hey, do you want a kitten? And I was like, oh, well, I have a lot of animals already. And it's like, yeah, but it's really cute. Here's pictures. And I was like, okay, I'll talk about it, see if we're ready and all of that. And yeah, we were ready and able to take in another cat. I think with our youngest cat is about 2 years old, and he's a 2 year old cat, so he's like super playful and everything. And our old man is not always in the mood to play with him, so it was like, well, it might actually kind of make sense to bring a younger cat in here so that our younger cat has another animal kind of close to his age that he can play with. Although the cat and the dog get well, both of the cats and the dog get along okay, but like the young cat in particular is really close with the dog, so they play together and everything. What layer did I put this in? Dear goodness, there we go. Okay. Just stepping back for a moment, looking at all that. Trying to see. Okay, so there is a little bit of a detail to the inside of her sleeve here. It's definitely the phase to try to catch any of like those like detail things and stuff like that. There's like a raised seam detail in there. Okay. Plus, there should probably be like kind of like a crease, like in there. I'm really liking what's going on here with the line art so far. So, yay. Always a plus. Do I want to see Cal and the others in live action? You know, that's a good point. I think that they lend themselves well to live action, being that they're already like motion captured people. So I think that they could do well in live action. What I have heard about these characters coming to live action is that uh who does these games? Respawn, right? Um because like basically only they know what happens in the story, they're like really tightly controlling where the characters go until the game trilogy is over. So as much as I would like to see them in live action, I think that we probably won't see them in live action, at least for like quite some time. At least until they finish the games. Although, like, again, in like, this was something actually that the author of Battle Scars brought up at the panel that we went to was, you know, in the Kenobi series, like when they have to invade Fortress Inquisitorius. Cal had already done that. Like, it almost made sense for them to like be like, well, I know this guy. Like, it almost seems like that would have been a good moment to kind of introduce Cal. And they didn't, which makes me think that, you know, maybe they won't be introducing him for some time. Yeah, I would love to say that that was my independent thought, but it definitely was not. That was. She's right, though. She's right. That would have been a good time to bring it up. Okay. Relax. I think that's pretty much it on the details there. Cool. So, I've really thought about doing this piece monochromatic and then having like the Nightsister magic being like the only part in color. So, what I would do for that, it's not something that I do very often. So, this is definitely something that like I would be like practicing and just kind of seeing how it looks and whatnot. So, what I'm going to do is, you know, like try putting the color in first and then filling in like the grays around it. And these would be like flat colors, obviously. I'm not even necessarily sold on this brush yet, but I think it's like kind of a cool wispy. It's in the same set as the brush I just used for the line art, so that's why like kind of my default to start is this. There's also like the oily blender, but I'll stick with the color one first, and then kind of switch to the blender, I think. I think I kind of need to stick like big around the hands. This stuff is kind of like a little harder to gauge, I think, when the whole thing isn't done yet. Particle effects are always like kind of an interesting thing to do in the first place. But I'm liking where this is going. Yes, I think the same thing too about Fortress Inquisitorius all the time. I'm constantly thinking about Fortress Inquisitorius, but specifically, the name is so goofy. But you know what? Sometimes Star Wars gets to be a little, you know, Star Warsy. I don't know how else to put that. They get a little weird with the naming and stuff every once in a while. The kitsch, if you will. Yeah, I like. So this is the blender from the same brush series, and I like kind of like the mix of like the bubbly lines from like the regular version of the tool, and like kind of the little bit more solid lines from the blender. That's kind of a cool look. And then probably what I'll go ahead and do is duplicate this and make one of them add glow, and take the kneaded eraser, and oh boy, the kneaded eraser is super slow. Alright. It's like, you know, it's good when it is dragging so far behind the brush. That's just a good indication that it's time to save. And why don't we just do the soft eraser instead, huh? Kick up the density a little bit and kind of erase around the tips and everything. so that it appears to be like glowing most intensely around like her eyes and like the center of her hands. I think is gonna be the way to go for this. And after all, we're just playing. If something looks a little strange, we can just go back and fix it. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer when it comes to how to draw Nightsister magic. I'm liking that though. I might set our glow more around like 87% or something like that. Oh, thank you. Kind of like where that's going. Now the issue here is I almost need to take the texture away. Yeah, so let's say I need to take like the texture of the paper away because I can't actually see what I'm coloring. Go ahead and get her like fingers and her face and everything gray. Yeah, I don't do monochromatic pieces very often or like almost ever. So that's what makes this intriguing to me is like I really will have to think about value and not just color. I think it would be a good exercise, and I think something like this it might look really cool. I could be wrong. I like tomorrow I might just decide that like, hey, I want to do all of her stuff in red because I want to see how this like mega cool lighting effect lights up. I mean, obviously green and red are complementary colors, so it should, in theory, look really good together. Um, so like, yeah, who knows? Maybe tomorrow I'll be like, yeah, sure, let's put the red in there. But for now, I just want to see how this goes. If nothing else, it's good practice. I'm just like not in that mode of thinking very often anymore. Okay. But too, I think that like kind of the interesting thing here is like just seeing what these new brushes can do. I'm all for trying new things and learning what works for me and what doesn't work for me and whatnot. Oop, not the right pen. Oop. Anytime it lags, it's like gotta save. Okay. I did not buy this brush. This is a free brush through Clip Studio. It's the BSCB set, and this is the oily blender. But the reason that I got it was actually for like the pen tool that I used to draw, because like I like I liked the idea of playing around with brushes that like look like ballpoint pens. I found one that I like just a little bit better for that ballpoint pen look, uh, but this one's like pretty close too for like that little bit of like a messy blend look to it. And I recently did like a couple of sketches where I used these to do like some really fast shading, and I really liked it. So that's why I'm kind of experimenting with it a little bit more and seeing, where it's appropriate to incorporate it into my works. And yeah. So I talked about this a little bit in like the weekly podcast that I do about the Ahsoka series. Spoiler alerts for any of you who are watching who has not seen the latest episode of Ahsoka, episode 4. My personal thought is that because of the way that that episode ended, um, with Anakin and everything, like it's supposed to kind of mirror Twilight of the Apprentice, and it's supposed to like remind us of what happened to her on Malachor, and of course, uh, part of what was going on Malachor as well is having um, the Inquisitors there, and the Inquisitors get killed in that episode. Specifically, you have the Eighth Brother in that episode, and I think like his appearance, either being the Eighth Brother or looking so much like the Eighth Brother, probably has a lot to do with like kind of calling back to the events of Twilight of the Apprentice. And it's like this like weird version of that episode, right? Because like obviously in that episode it's when she sees like Anakin is Darth Vader for the first time, and so like this is seeing Anakin as not Darth Vader for the first time since that incident. So I think that that was probably the purpose. Not that I like know for certain, like I'm not in the creator's brain, so I can't think, but like that's what it made me think, basically, is that, oh, this is like tying back into the aesthetic and the events of Twilight of the Apprentice. So I think that was basically my explanation for that. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the show so far. Every week I get like a little bit more into it. I see like very polarized opinions online, as with anything Star Wars, I suppose. You're gonna have people who love it and hate it, but I'm personally, I like when our characters are allowed to make meaningful choices and mistakes, and like I like to see them like challenged in that way. And it's like it's a justified choice, but like given what Sabine, uh, the the whole recording with Ezra that she has, that's like sometimes being a Jedi means you have to make the choices that no one else will, and her kind of like failure to be a Jedi kind of helps explore those themes of what it means to truly be a Jedi or to be like a gray Jedi outside of the Order, and we get like so many characters to explore that with, and I think that that's getting to be very enjoyable. I gotta remember when I'm doing like all of these like um, colors that are in like the same layer and whatnot, that like I can't just like erase one from the other. I'm just so not used to working in that mode, which is why this is so funny to me. Just not used to thinking that way. Okay, so we need like a little bit darker blender. Yeah, as far as like actually blending though, I'm not really sure. Maybe I just need to decrease the paint here. Yeah, there we go. That's a little better. There we go. That's kind of more the effect that I was going for. Yeah, I mean, so I think that some of that, I don't think that the creators like anticipated everybody like having their own theories as to who, like, oh, is it Barris, is it Ezra, is it all of that. Like, I don't think that the creators of the show like really anticipated that, because like again, like aesthetically he looks so much like the eighth brother that I really truly think that that was like where they were going with that, whether or not they actually intended for it to be him. Like, I do definitely think that like it was supposed to look like him. And so I think that um for people to say like, oh, it's a mask so that it has to be somebody we know and it's going to be like a big reveal or something, I don't think that that's something that they really like thought was going to happen, to be honest. I mean, it certainly wasn't anything that like occurred to me until like I started seeing like the online stuff floating around and everything. And even then I was like, okay, but like the aesthetic is so clearly like, I just like never really bought into it, I guess, because it was like, well, like aesthetically it looks like this character, so I think it's really supposed to be this character. um but yeah, I just don't think that they could like truly like plan for everything right. Like, did they foresee that coming? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe they could have made some choices that would have made that a little bit more clear. I don't fault them too much on it though. I still think what they're doing is great, so that's just my personal opinion on it. Okay. Yeah, this blendy, like I said, this blendy type stuff is like just not stuff that I do all the time. So this is kind of a little bit more fun. It reminds me a little bit more of like doing some like old school traditional stuff. Gonna start putting some highlights on her face too. Ah, fill tool. It depends on what I'm doing with my line art, whether or not I will do the fill tool or not. In this particular instance, like this is like what I wanted to practice, like by doing a monochrome piece. But where are you? Sorry, my color wheel moved to red for some reason. Um, this is kind of just what I wanted to practice. Also, depending on what uh, brush you use, like something this rough, the fill tool probably would not do a super good job with. Uh, so it just depends on what's like kind of like the effect that I'm going for and everything, how I will color it. But in this case, like I like I just kind of like I get into the groove where I'm doing like the same things kind of over and over again, and like it looks good, but I always wonder to myself, like, could I be doing like a little bit better, like is there something that I could be doing to like kind of like push the envelope to like help me improve. So that's why I just like to experiment every once in a while and do something like just a little bit different from the way that I did it before, because sometimes I just want to like push the limits of what I can create. Basically, like I don't think I'm like the best artist ever, and I don't even think I'm the best artist that I could be. So, in some regards, it's just about doing what I need to do to improve, really. And sometimes it'll be a step back, and that's okay too. Like sometimes it just won't turn out right, And like I try to be like kind of mindful of like what my mental status is like when I go to do a project that's maybe going to be like pushing the envelope a little bit, and maybe not something that's going to turn out exactly the way that I anticipated. Um, I try to keep in mind, like, hey, am I like feeling down about my artwork? Maybe I shouldn't play around too much. Like, maybe I should, for this piece, like, stick to the basics really, and just kind of do what I'm comfortable with. But um, I went to a convention this weekend and everything, and I got to see like a whole bunch of other creatives doing really incredible stuff, which makes me think about stuff that I could do to improve as well. So that's sort of where I come from in this process and everything. So like if I never try anything different, I just feel like I'm eventually gonna get stuck, I guess. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's just good to play around with something a little different, and sometimes I just need to play it safe. I mean, to be honest, while I like how the hair and the magic effects are looking, I'm like not at this moment in time. I'm not super like happy with how the shading on the face is going. But sometimes that means it just needs to be like I just need to stick with it and play with it a little more. And sometimes that means like, hey, you're getting frustrated. Just try something that you know will work. It just depends. It's been a long time since I did like any kind of like digital painting. But I've done some pretty cool ones. Like I did one of Captain Phasma that I really, really like. But as far as like obviously this is kind of like a messy blender, but for like a very quick effect, actually I think I'm gonna leave that. For like a very quick effect, it's not a bad job for something that's like that fast. do think I need to put a little bit more of the dark blend on this side of her nose too. Her nose is starting to look a little bit crooked there. I mean, she is like sneering just a little bit. And then I also need to kind of, with a little bit of a darker color, outline her markings. Yeah, a lot of times I let my like my blending mode layers do a lot of the like lighting effects for me, like the multiply and all of that. And that can work pretty well. Okay, so now what I'll do a lighter one with like super little paint on it. And just kind of highlight the highlights. Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, yes. Isn't it just my favorite thing in the whole wide world? A character with potential that gets lost. Oh, her lipstick is also darker too. I always said, like, one thing that I really like to do is if I know I'm going to be coming to a convention that like a voice actor, an actor, or whatever I'm interested in is going to be signing things. I like to bring like a piece of my own artwork to get signed. That's just kind of like a tradition that I like to do. So for this convention, this past one this weekend, I got a print signed by Freddie Prinze Jr. So I always said that like if I ever get to meet Gwendolyn Christie, that's like the print I'm gonna have her sign is like a Phasma painting of mine. A little too fine. Just needs... All right. Now let's move on to her hands. All right. Shading these is going to be interesting because I've given myself a real challenge here with all of this fire. like picking which spots are going to be like the highlights and everything. It's like, oh gosh, there's light coming from within, and but again, that's kind of what makes it fun. And I've been drawing. I mean, obviously, I've been drawing my whole life, but um, I've been drawing like seriously for like a decade now. So like, how am I going to keep it interesting? Well, one way to do that is just keep finding new ways to draw the things that I like to draw. Basically, that's what it boils down to. Oh, hello. Yes, you made it. I hope your driving practice went well. I don't know if y'all have heard. It depends on which ones of my circles you pay attention to and whatnot. But I was actually in a car accident this week, so boy, driving lessons are uh, high on. Hold on, my son is getting into something. Lito, thank you. I heard the sounds of cats getting into trouble. Yeah, I was it was actually the day I was leaving for Dragon Con. I was like driving in my lane and everything and just totally minding my own business. Like, I was being very I was being like a particularly courteous driver because it's like kids, please settle. I'm trying to tell a story. I was like being like particularly courteous because there was like a lot of cops out, and I let this like FedEx truck in front of me, and um, as we pull to the next intersection, I guess like this lady didn't like she was like waiting for the FedEx truck to pass so she could come into my lane, and she like just totally was not paying attention really, and she just like ran straight into my car. Like as soon as the FedEx truck passed, she just like pulled like right into the side of my car. So now I've got to like take my car to get it fixed and everything. And okay, hey, all right, I'm about to kick out my children. Just a second, guys. I know we're having a great time. Go, Marshall. Can you call Freya? Marshall. Stay. Whew, they were like really, really playing. Oh, you got pulled over. Well, I mean, hopefully, yeah. Like you said, like you have your dealer's plate and everything, and it takes some time to order things. So I'm glad that that interaction went okay and everything. And yeah, I'm glad. Like honestly, my car did a really good job of protecting me. Like I barely felt anything in the accident, so now it's just like, I'm glad that it's like a luxury that I get to be like, oh God, I like have to go get my car fixed, and all of that. So it could have been a lot worse, especially given that it's like a holiday weekend and a lot of people are like drinking and driving, and this person clearly like she wasn't. She was just an old lady who just had a momentary lapse of uh, attention, basically, and just pulled into me. I mean, the one like really tough thing is that I don't have any vacation time with work, basically for the rest of the year. So like all the time that it's going to take to get my um, car fixed, I have to take unpaid. Because like you have to like drive to the collision place, and it's only open when I happen to be at work, like, and so I have to take off work to go drop it off there, which means I'm going to lose wages because I don't have any vacation time. So it's like minor things like that where it's like, okay, like it's an inconvenience, but I'm fine, and I clearly wasn't at fault, so I get to get my car fixed because of the insurance that I pay for and everything. So all minor complaints, all things said. So, but be careful out there, especially because I know how hard you worked and how long it took you to save up for your car. Oh gosh, definitely don't want anything to happen to it. I think I need like a little bit more of the light color up in here. One thing that I really need to learn about when I'm doing things like this is like whenever you're doing like all of your colors in the same layer because you're doing like something really blendy, um, the order that you put the colors down in really matters. So it doesn't matter so much when I'm doing like my regular style because um, like every color is in a separate layer and it's really like the blending modes that are deciding what shows the lightest and the darkest and whatnot. But in these, if you start to like put down a darker color on top of a lighter color, whatever, like you can lose the stuff that you have underneath and kind of not necessarily be able to replicate it again. So that's definitely something that I have to keep in mind when I'm doing these because I'm just out of the practice of doing this style of illustration basically. My nose still dripping from con. Happens when you're with all of your closest friends. You'll get con crud. I don't think I've really ever been to a convention and not gotten the dreaded con crud. Unfortunately. But boy, did I have a good time. That's what matters, right? It's like, come on, if you're gonna go through like a car accident and all of these other things to get to your convention, you better at least have a good time, right? Uh, and I did. I did. I got to see Katie O'Brien in the flesh, and she is like every bit as gorgeous. Yeah, yeah, exactly. She is every bit as gorgeous in person as she is on screen. That looks rad. I never do monochrome stuff. I don't know why. This is looking really cool. Okay, all right. Um, so I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and make a separate layer for the clothes so that I don't like accidentally um, go over like the really nicely blended areas of the skin. So then I will like go through and kind of just a little bit because like it has like an inherently messy look to it and I'm not trying to like get rid of that. I'm just gonna clean up the edges like just a touch where it overlaps with the clothes. All right. All right, I got 1 hour left. This one, I'm having a great time, and I'm super excited that my recording is actually working. So hopefully, I can post this one to YouTube. at the end of the night, which would be super awesome. So I think I need to start with kind of like the darkest parts of it first, and then add the light on top. So I think I'm going to start with like her vest. And that's gonna like pull some nice contrast with this fire too. Like I went ahead and did the part that I wanted to be in color first. Um, and I think that when I put this background on, it's gonna like really make that green pop. But that also was like me helping to establish my light source and everything too. Trying to think of like some of my favorite moments. I went to a lot of like making of Star Wars panels as per usual. Like that's just me in general. I will pretty much always go to any making of Star Wars panel ever. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I learned a lot about like theory of Star Wars puppetry and um, like what makes non-human characters in Star Wars resonate with people the way that they do. And clearly they do. I mean, look at all of us. We're all into like the non-human characters of Star Wars and everything, and things that material characters can do, and ways that they can be used in performance that like human characters cannot be used in the same ways. Stuff like that. Marshall went to a lot of panels about like building and everything like that, like building sets. So one of the first things that we did actually was we went to a panel about a fan film, a Star Wars fan film called Bucketheads, and I have to share it with all of y'all. Actually, I really should post it to my Tumblr so you guys can enjoy it. But it's like this fan made episode series, and like they've done like just an exceptional job, and it's all about like Imperials after the Death Star and everything. It's kind of like an alternate universe or whatever, and like it is so cool. And like we were pretty early to the panel because it was on the first day, and we needed to pick up badges. And me just like being experienced with cons and everything, it's like badge pickup can take like a variable amount of time. So we went ahead and did badge pickup like pretty early on the first day. So we were like the first people in line for this panel. And someone gets behind us in the same line and is like, oh, like, first in line for Bucketheads, have you seen it yet? And we were like, well, no, we want to see it. Like, I read the panel description and I thought it sounded interesting and everything. And it turned out he was like one of the actors in Bucketheads. Oh, you've seen Bucketheads. Yes, Bucketheads is super good. Apparently the third episode is coming out very soon. So like a bunch of the creators of Bucketheads were there, and he was like one of like the like basically stunt double stormtroopers who was like in the indoor forest scene in the beginning and everything like that. And they did like a lot of like soundstage filming, and like they talked about like the process of making it and everything. And we like I talked with like he was dressed as like I think his name was Steve, and he was dressed up like pink shorts boom mic guy. And so like we struck up a conversation, and so that was like a really great way to start the weekend and everything, was just to like have a conversation with a fellow with a whole bunch of fellow Imperial lovers, really. Realistically. And there was a guy there too that was dressed as Eli Vanto's Chiss Ascendancy uniform, which I thought was kind of neat too. Actually, these will probably be highlighted on the top edge. This is where the light source is. And I'm trying to think of what we did after that. There were just so many things that we did in like any given day. I know we went to like a reading for like a fantasy novel that it was written like back in the 1960s by a 16-year-old boy from like middle US, and like he did like uh not the best job of writing. And like, to be honest, like they said at the beginning of the panel, it's like, well, like critics back in the day were like kind of cruel to him, and like the intention of this panel is not to be cruel to this guy. He eventually like got a career in journalism and became a writer. He just never wrote fiction again. It's like, well, our goal is not to like shame a 16-year-old for writing a bad story. The goal is like uh the story transcended time and even the author's uh, lifetime, and it makes people smile and laugh. And like, we're not here to like make fun of anybody, but we're here to celebrate something that brings people together and makes people laugh. So you don't want to do it like in the spirit of like vicious mockery or anything like that. But we did like a reading where you like there were so many like grammatical mistakes, and it was written on a typewriter. So like, instead of like correcting the mistakes, right, he just like sent the work into a fanzine with all of the mistakes and everything in it. So it's like, as you're reading it, anytime that you make a mistake, you have to pass the reading on to the next person, and then you begin acting out the scene. And of course, it's like super dramatic, and the lines are kind of corny and everything because it was written by a 16-year-old, and we are all acknowledging that. It's like something that's written by a 16-year-old, so it's like it's all super gory and like super detailed and graphic and all of these things like that. And so yeah, it is kind of like just a spirit of having fun reading interesting fan fiction, as it were. Huh, interesting. Oh, I see. Yeah, these are new brushes, and I'm not like super hip as to how exactly they work yet. So like, I almost need to do like 0. Nope. Not what I wanted either. Learning experience. Yeah, Marshall actually lasted 5 minutes reading this thing. It's called the Eye of Argon. I don't know if I actually mentioned that at any point. Oh, the trials and tribulations of trying to get the blend mode to work exactly the way that you want it when it's a new blending brush that you've never used before. There we go. Kind of have it a little bit more down pat now. It behaves a little better, I think, at smaller brush sizes than it does at the bigger brush sizes. I think it starts to get like a little bit confused when the brush size is made a little bit bigger. Yeah, exactly. I think my favorite part of the Eye of Argon reading was there was first of all the barbarian in the story's name is Grignor, and like I am absolutely like I love um the name Grignor so much that I think I'm probably gonna sneak a character into one of my fan fictions named Grignor. Um, and then two, there's a line where he tells a, how should I say this, a maid, there's like a whole bunch. He walks into a bar and there's a whole bunch of naked women, and there's just like other barbarians making love to the naked women or whatever. And he sees one on a bench and he says, "I make love well, wench." And I think that was possibly my favorite line of the entire thing. And I've been quoting it ever since. I make love well, wench. Like, oh, okay. Again, I think something that comes out of the hearts and minds of 16-year-olds, right? All right, that's looking kind of neat. Kind of like a little bit reflective, but not too reflective. All right, next layer. Yay. I'm wondering how much of this I can get done before I have to go to bed. It would be really sick if I could finish it, but I don't think that that's going to be the case. We'll get a hell of a lot further than we normally do with these things, I think. Okay, go a little darker. Yeah, so I think that's the issue with here. Okay. I love you fabrics. I love just making different fabrics behave differently. Ah, I was in the wrong layer. That's why. I was like, why isn't it getting darker here? Cool, cool. I like that. Let's go ahead and do her gloves while we're at it. Remember what I said about, oh, like, I'll I'll erase nice and messy around here because I think that's kind of part of the appeal. And I'm not enjoying what I did about the messy erasing. I think that was a mistake. I think I should have been a lot cleaner in my erasing. Sometimes like the one thing about like stuff like this is that like it's hard to tell when it's better to like change colors or change like brush density, if that makes sense. Like when do you just want a slightly more transparent brush and when do you actually want to go through with the lighter color? Not quite that small. I keep forgetting to save. That would be bad of me. Like, please remember to save. Not that Merrin needs anyone to save her, but you know. Trying to think of anything else like noteworthy that y'all might be interested in that happened at Dragon Con. I met some vendors who were all very nice. I met several Star Wars writers who were all awesome. I just really like getting to tell them like how much their works have meant to me personally and everything. That was that was great. I've actually met like some of them before, even to before this trip. Like Timothy Zahn comes to Dragon Con like pretty much every year, so I've definitely encountered him before. And my favorite interaction with Timothy Zahn was it was like back in 2016 when like Thrawn had like just been announced in Rebels and everything, and I drew a Thrawn print to have him sign. Uh-oh. That layer underneath is also in the same layer. That's not good of me. Um, I brought a drawing of Rebels Thrawn for him to sign, and he looked at it and he was like, "Wow, this is like kind of one of the first times I've seen like the Rebels look of him." And he was like, "That was fast." Is one thing that he said. But he like got kind of emotional about it, like because I guess it was like the first time he'd seen him like on screen, right? Because it's always been like a book character, and you know they drew him for like comics and everything like that, but like this was like a totally new look for Thrawn. And This was also the 25th anniversary of Heir to the Empire, so I had him sign my 25th anniversary Heir to the Empire book as well. But yeah, it was just kind of a neat moment that like he like kind of like stared at the drawing for a minute because it was just like this is what Thrawn looks like now. It's kind of just a moment for him. It was really neat. I'm glad that could bring that drawing like right at that particular time because I'm sure now he's seen Rebels Thrawn probably 1,000 times now. But at the moment, it was something kind of new. I also probably my favorite. I don't know. It's hard to pick a favorite author interaction this time around, but it was really funny because this is the first time that I've met Claudia Gray at Dragon Con, and she had like a stand up in the vendors hall, and so I went to get my copy of Lost Star signed because that is a Star Wars book that like basically when Marshall and I were first dating, we were long distance, and that was one of the things that we like bonded over is like we were reading this book and like one person would get so far in it and then you'd have to like be begging them to like read the next part or whatever so that you could talk about it and everything. That was Last Stars for us, and you know, it was fun to like actually get to tell Claudia Gray that story and everything. And then she was like, you know, it's funny that you should say that because I actually met my husband because of Lost Stars. She said that her husband was like in a class with someone and was talking about this great Star Wars book that he was reading and that he was really enjoying. And a girl at the back of the class pipes up and says, like, my godmother wrote that book. She dropped me off today. So like that's actually how they met was over his love of Lost Stars, and it's a very good and very romantic book. So I could see many people meeting their spouses over it. That definitely jives with the book itself. It's definitely one of my favorites of like, especially of the Disney Star Wars. I liked Bloodline too, which she also wrote, but I have the personal connection to Lost Stars that I don't have with many other books in my Star Wars book collection. So, oh, thank you. Yes, I am also enjoying it. I like how like it's kind of allowing me like normally I do like all of the flat colors and then I go back and I add like the shading and the highlights and everything. So like it's very interesting to kind of like do everything all at once. Uh, for sure. The one thing that is kind of like, and you know, I can probably fix that by doing this. Let's see. Okay, naturally, I would do it like this. Oh, yeah. Sometimes you can make it like darker by like duplicating and stuff, but I don't actually really like that. There's not a ton of definition between her hand in front and the layers behind it, so it kind of makes me want to like duplicate this and turn it into a multiply layer to darken it up, and then I just need to erase uh, this part of it, like erase the part that's for just this hand. And I think that's how I'm going to handle that. A combination of blending modes and the traditional stuff, I think, is probably the way to go for things like this. like I was telling our other friend earlier that I never like want to get like stagnant in my art, right? Like I want to like sort of constantly be trying new things to sort of up the ante a little bit, like to kind of push the limits of what I can do and learn new things and everything. I'm all about that. It's like, yeah, I could do this, I'm happy with how my last piece turned out too, and I could like try to do this like the exact same style that I did that piece with and all of that, but um I could also try something like totally out there and different and just see what happens. So it's like there was like this piece like right under the finger that didn't get colored. So just trying to color match that to that up there. Her vest is not unlike Loki's vest. I'm realizing, like as I'm going through this process and everything, it's not unlike like this, like the leather strap part of it. Anyway, so layer. But boy, oh boy, working in monochrome like really makes you like have to be like very conscious about what colors you're going to dedicate to what values. Because like again, like I said, it was like, well, like the thing underneath was getting too close in value to the gloves, and you couldn't tell that they were like two separate things. So then you got to decide which one is going to be your darkest dark and everything like that. Kind of unique challenges to, and like again, it's like this super textured brush. So like if I increase the brush size like that, I like you can tell the difference in covering a big area. So it's kind of a little trial and error. Definitely need to save though. But on the other hand, it is like also kind of crazy how much of this drawing. What the hell just happened? Okay, this must have just been done in like a really transparent color. Um, I forgot what I was saying. Sorry. That happens. Brain isn't all there quite yet. I'm still on vacation. Not really. I'm very much back at work, but my brain says it's still vacation time. I'm wondering, I think I should probably just go ahead and fill the whole jacket. And then do the values after it's full. Alright. I may hate myself for doing this later, but for now, this is what's happening. So a lot of what I do like with my work and everything and the illustrations that I do at work is I use clipping masks to like select areas and like cover them. So like if I was at work, I would probably use like a clipping mask to get rid of all of that and like where her fingers like overlap the coat and everything like that. But um this brush kind of doesn't lend itself to stuff like that very well because it is kind of a messier brush, so the computer can't quite suss out um, what is supposed to be within the boundaries of the lines and what isn't, because it's like the edge is too rough for it to like figure out which pixels need to be included and which ones don't. But again, because it's like a little bit messier brush, like you get a little bit more leeway when you do kind of come outside the lines a little bit. So it is a little bit more forgiving as well. Okay. But it's so funny, like I focus so much on having, and maybe that's like a good balance that I need to strike is like I have such clean line art and I work really hard to make sure that my line art is like really precise and everything. So like maybe the having the precise line art with like the not so precise coloring underneath is a good look. Uh, just a thought. But ever since I did that like practice sketch with like all of the different mouths with these brushes and like I shaded it so quickly just with like two passes of this brush that kind of was what like got me in the mood to try like a bigger piece and something more like this. Out of the norm for me. We'll see if it sticks. Okay, time to shade this bad boy. Or bad girl in this case. Haha, Merrin. Alright. Through. So add some lights. Okay. A little darker. Sorry if I'm getting like real quiet on y'all. It's just like this part actually kind of requires like a little bit more thought in some regards. I actually think I'm gonna get the values down because like I'm not happy with how like light it is right now. So I'm like getting the values down a little bit. And then I think I'm gonna do like the same thing that I did with the other one, where like I multiply it, and so like I can get it like just a touch darker than it is now. But first, I need to like go ahead and fill out sort of all of the other light parts and dark parts and everything, and get that like sorted first. I can't even tell you like the last time that I think the last time I painted with oil paints, like true oil paints, I was in high school. So over 10 years ago. Because I was like trying to think, because like it very much does sort of behave like oil paints behaves. And so I was like, man, when was the last time I actually kind of like did anything with oil paint? And it was like a very long time ago. Okay. All right. So that's kind of like the basic values. So what if I duplicate, multiply? Okay, and now I'm gonna take this and like blend it out a little bit, like just a wee bit more of like the regular blending in the non-highlighted layer. Yeah, when my brush starts drifting like that, I know it's time to save. Ah, huh. I don't think I've ever worn sunglasses inside the house for an extended period of time, but I also don't live in a desert like you do, so I'm not going to pretend that I know what is the right thing to do there. I just don't know. Okay. Play with the opacity of that layer. It looks kind of neat the way that it is, though. Now, what I think I'm gonna do, just to kind of like tie all this together, do another add glow layer with like this, like, oh god, what did I do? Nope, not what I wanted. I meant to pick up the dropper tool and I picked up the magic wand tool. Take this like super vibrant green color. Take the airbrush tool. Yeah, I like that. That was a cool move. Unfortunately, as much as I would like to make the back, oh, and also I need to add the paper texture back in. Now, as much as I would like to make the background green, I think the fact that I have a transparency, it's gonna mess with it. So I think what I need to do actually is get rid of that, get rid of my, ooh, um, somewhere in here is my signature. Right there, okay. Get rid of my signature for just a moment. Take the magic wand tool and refer other layers to select. Okay. We're just going to select everything that is not Merrin. Perfect. And I'm going to apply that as a mask to this layer so that when I do this, oh, it's trying to apply it to the mask, that's why. When I do that, it's like it's not coming underneath where I have like the blend mode. But actually what I should do before I do that, a lot of times when I'm doing like these clipping mask things, I will duplicate the layer, like just in case I need multiple, like once I've set up the mask that I like, just in case I need multiple layers masked the same way, I'll duplicate the layer and I'll have one that's just empty and locked and not visible, so that if I need to create multiple layers with the same clipping mask, I can just duplicate that one again instead of having to like try to reselect the clipping mask. Okay. Get that paper back in there. All right. So now when I do this, it only fills the area that's not like part of Merrin herself. And then I can like do kind of brush effects and everything in the background, and it won't impact Merrin, basically. I can even duplicate that. And let's see if I add, maybe I'll start with that, because what I'll do is I'll erase the edges. I don't really get to the point, like, honestly, I'm super glad that I did this in this coloring method, because I know, like, normally it takes me such a long time to work on a piece that you guys don't really get to see how I do, like, all the rendering effects and everything. So this is kind of neat that we get to go over this together. And now turn up the density of paint and everything. Go ahead and save that. I used the same brush. Actually, if you saw my the last Grand Inquisitor thing that I did, and there's like some sort of like magic like coming from the holocron and everything, that was actually using this same brush here as well. Okay, so like now I would like to add some like multiply to it, so now I can duplicate the one that's like blank and locked. And I have another clipping mask layer, and this one is going to be a multiply layer, so I can add some like some nice depth. It's gotta go on top. There we go. Okay. Oh, because it's still doing it under there. I'm not actually a huge fan of that. I think if I'm gonna do the multiply layer, I need to actually like pick a darker color and put it under this layer. See how that works. I've definitely been trying to like as a part of the process of like trying to better myself as an artist, like just trying to spend more time on backgrounds than I used to. And hopefully it pays off. But I'm liking what's happening here. I think that this is neat. Now, what I think I want to do is kind of just on top of my my little layers of Merrin's body color and everything. I just want to take like this brush, like super tiny, and just go through and add like a couple of little details here and there to like kind of like make it pop, I guess. Like just add like a couple of little like, because like you know I did like kind of like a vast strokes, you know, like I didn't like go through and make like all these little teeny tiny little highlights and everything. And I can kind of go back and like add individual strands of hair like that. And just pick up like tiny, tiny little highlights and everything. Like there should be highlights on her rings. Maybe like right in the folds of this fabric or something, you know. And this is just kind of like, again, to just kind of make like the seams pop. That's like one thing that I've learned about like stuff that you kind of do with a like a wide blender and whatnot is that sometimes it is kind of easy to lose like the sharp edges of things and things like that. I know I said things like 6 times in that sentence. Forgive me. I'm a much better thinker when I'm not actively trying to like draw or something. But yeah, this under here is like jewelry, so it should obviously have some highlights. Ooh, not that big. Oh, right, erasing that it makes no difference because there's a clipping mask there. Kind of like that. Um, Realistically, I could probably do this till the end of time, where I just pick like little itty bitty details to pick up on. But um, isn't that every drawing though? Like you can just endlessly find more and more details that you want to add. It's kind of just up to you whenever you're ready to stop. It doesn't have to be the highest resolution drawing of a person ever. And in fact, this brush would probably be incredibly poorly suited to that. But All right, guys, how are we feeling about that? Every time I see something else that I want to do a little bit more with, every time I'm like, okay, how do we feel about this? How do we feel about this? Find something else that I can tinker with. But like honestly though, I think this is kind of rad. Okay. Oh, hold on. Oh, you saw it. You saw it. It's a little too dark, I think. Good concept, but just a wee bit too dark. That is true. Okay, maybe it doesn't actually need that as much as I think it does. Yeah. It's always good to know when to say when, right? When to say, like, okay, I've done enough. It looks good. No more tinkering. I think I'm pretty much at that point. Well, thank y'all for joining me. I am so stoked to like actually like start a piece and well, I mean I obviously I did the sketch a previous day, but like to actually like finish a piece on the same day that it kind of uh starts with the line art and everything. But I think this looks kind of how I wanted it to look. So thank y'all for joining me, and hope to see you guys next week for our Ahsoka review on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central Time. And I'll be doing art streams every week that I can on Thursdays at 7 Central Time. So hope to see y'all then. Have a great week. Yeah, you too. And I hope your headache gets better. Have a nice night.